Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Branco Broadcast. My name is Bob Branco. We're very pleased this evening to have with us Rita Kersh. And Rita, welcome to the show. We're very pleased with us.
Well, thank you for letting me come on.
I'll have you give a brief presentation, and then we're going to open the floor to questions. So now you can give your presentation. Welcome, Rita.
Okay, thank you. Just to tell a little bit about myself, I am totally blind. I'm hard of hearing due to Usher syndrome type 2. I am a retired rehab teacher for the blind. I worked a little over 20 years in Jackson, Mississippi as a rehab teacher. I retired and came back home to Bedford, Indiana, which is where I live now. And I always had this urge to write a little bit. And before I left Mississippi, I did get involved with some of the deaf-blind coordinators. I'm not sure what they're actually called, through the Helen Keller National Center, because I had lost all the hearing in my right ear. And I got involved with some of the Helen Keller staff and became a deaf-blind specialist before I retired. I then got involved in a little magazine called Good Cheer. And this little magazine is one that was created by a lady who was deaf-blind back in the 30s. And here we are going on around 80 years that this little magazine's been in existence. And I'm the editor of it now as of about 7 years maybe. I've been the editor. This little magazine has literally gone all over the world. We have probably about 300 subscribers internationally. And we have like articles for people who are deaf, blind, hearing impaired, all that kind of thing. But it's just amazing that it has survived for that long. But on a personal note, besides doing the editing for this little magazine, I decided I wanted to write a book on helpful hints for people with vision problems. And that book came about around 2012, and the lady that I was speaking to earlier, that's kind of what we had talked about on the Cozy Kitchen program a few years ago. So it is helpful hints, all kinds of everyday types of hints for people who have low vision or are blind. And I'm still selling those. I have some I need to get rid of, so they're available. Then about a year later, I decided I wanted to write or edit a funny book, a humorous book. So my second book came out, and I got excerpts or short stories from people who are visually impaired or deaf-blind, and I told them when I was soliciting for the stories that I would like stories from people who have had funny or embarrassing situations happen due to their vision problem. And I got lots and lots of stories and compiled a little book, and it's also available. My first book is called Pathway to Independence, and the second book, the humorous one, is called A Laugh a Day Keeps the Blues Away. And as a former rehab teacher, I know from working with my clients how important it is to have a heads up when you are, especially when you're newly visually impaired, you're in those grief stages, and the reason for the funny book was for mostly those newly visually impaired, to show them, if you do run into a door, you're not the only one, that kind of thing. Oh, I knew that would happen. So I am now trying to get the word out about my 2 books. I'm involved here in my local area with our local ACB chapter, and I've been on the Indiana ACB board for the last 6 years. So I'm really involved in ACB, and I'm a lion here in Bedford. And I would say my biggest accomplishment locally was to get some Audible Pedestrian Signals installed at 6 intersections in our town. If anybody lives along US 50, well, US 50 goes straight through our downtown in Bedford. And if you're visually impaired, blind, you do not want to cross a US highway. Because, semis are going all hours of the day and all that. So these pedestrian signals that I requested through our Indiana Department of Transportation were finally totally installed about 2 months ago, 2 or 3 months ago. So that's my big accomplishment that I'm really proud of, and it's going to help not only our local visually impaired people, but they are building or remodeling a senior apartment building downtown, and that will also help people, elderly people as well. So I think, well, I have a guide dog, I have a leader dog, and Jazzy's sitting on the couch over here by me. And I guess I kind of have covered everything, Bob. So I'm open to questions.
Anyone with a question?
Yeah, Ed Fetus, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Ed Fetus from New Jersey. I'm not too sure about this new muting system. That's why I'm going to preempt my question with some comments first, if I may. I heard about good cheer maybe 60 years ago. One of my friends who since passed away had a very moderate hearing loss, which progressively got worse, and he loved the magazine then. And, of course, I never cared much either way. I had 2 jobs. I really didn't have time to read anything except what I had to read. But I'm wondering whether you ever saw any of the old issues. I think you were referring to Alma Murphy when you spoke about a former editor. And I wondered how they compare with today's world. Today's magazine is excellent. I read it cover to cover. And I wondered, if they have the same kind of thing or what the format was and the motif.
Well, when I gathered some information to compile a little history on the Good Cheer magazine, Rod McDonald, I don't know if you remember that name, but Rod McDonald is a former editor. He was the editor before I was. And he has a history by a man, he may have been an editor back in the 60s. This guy, he started out doing a history on Good Cheer. I do remember that name that you mentioned. The person that is mostly credited for actually starting what was back then a little newsletter was Greta Cornelius. And back then, in the late 30s, it was hand-brailled you can imagine doing that. And it evolved into actually having APH braille it at some point. Now we have the National Braille Press. They braille it for us, and they even mail it internationally too for us. So it evolved from a newsletter with, just a few pages to what you could actually call a little magazine. So does that answer your question, sort of?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Rita, I have a question. How do you obtain the magazine, and how do you obtain your books?
Okay. Well, as far as the magazine, if you have email, you can email me, or you can actually mail me a letter, because I will need, depending on the format of the magazine that you want, I will need your address or your email address, that kind of thing. We have it available in 3 formats. It's in Braille, large print, and by email. And as far as the book goes, same thing. Now, the magazine is free. We survive on strictly on donations. We are not affiliated with any organization or anything. It's just a bunch of people with deaf-blindness and vision problems that submit things to the magazine, and I put it all together. Okay, so the magazine is free, no matter what format. But of course, we love donations. My books, they are each $10 a piece. I've got each book in large print and on audio CDs. And if somebody wants it brailled, it will take longer, but I'm still charging $10 for the braille because a friend of mine does it. It's not professionally done, but it's bound and readable. So if you want me to let everybody know how to contact me, you want me to do that now, Bob, or?
You can do it now and at the end of the program.
Okay. Well, we'll see what other kind of questions we've got, and then I'll do it at the end.
Rita, hi. This is Mike in Aventura, Florida. I have a question for you. Out of your years of rehab, I'm totally blind, by the way, teaching. Mm-hmm. And my dad was a mobility instructor, and I taught him how to read Braille. What is the hardest thing that you had to deal with as a rehab teacher?
As far as the clients that I worked with, well, I think working with people who had maybe intellectual disabilities as well as the vision loss, because those people you have to be very, very patient with. You have to do a lot of repetition, like Braille. Some people I taught Braille to, they could get the first 10 letters in the first class, but with someone with a significant intellectual disability, you may have to just do 2 or 3 and repeat it several days before they catch on. So I think the intellectual disability was difficult for me because I wasn't really, when you train to be a rehab teacher, even though we were taught about other disabilities and diseases people may have, like diabetes and things like that, you're not really prepared on how to adapt your teaching to work with, the different kinds of other disabilities.
Right.
Yeah, and plus, I had as a deaf-blind specialist, I wasn't fluent in sign language, so getting somebody in there in my class that was a fluent signer, I always had to have an interpreter. I could do a little, but when they're fluent like that, I had to depend on somebody else, an interpreter to help me out there.
I have one more question.
Yeah, okay.
I'm
Go ahead.
totally blind and hard of hearing.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, why do you think so many young blind people are becoming hard of hearing today? Do you think it's because of the oxygen situation?
No.
Well, some people may not realize that they might have a genetic problem which causes the hearing loss. But then, young people, whether they're sighted or blind, you can go down the street in a car and you're hearing boom, 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 Young people are just blowing their ears out with this loud music and stuff. They have iPods and stuff, and they've got their earphones in, they're blasting the music, and they don't realize that's going to affect them later on. In my case, mine was genetic, and I didn't know until I was an adult that it was called Usher syndrome, which is kind of strange because it's been around a long time. People, people have known about Usher syndrome in the professional world anyway. But it was a low vision specialist that told me that I had Usher syndrome. It wasn't somebody in the hearing field. So.
This is Rich. I've got a question.
Thank you.
When you were talking about the pedestrian signals, take us through that process, because I think some people think that to get something like that done, you just make a couple of phone calls and turn on a light switch and there it is. But tell us I know from being down here, kind of what happened. What a lengthy, long, hard-fought process that was, and how long it took, and so forth.
Yeah, that's Rich. He's one of my buddies down here in Bedford.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's Rich. Well, I started the process after I got back from Leader Dog in September of 2012, because I was introduced to it up there in Michigan as part of our training. They showed us how to use the pedestrian signals, and I was like, oh, this is so awesome. We need this everywhere. And so my first step was I had some information that I had gotten in the exhibit area at an ACB conference, probably a year before, about the pedestrian signals, because I was interested in it before I even went to get my dog. So I had those handouts and material, and I took it to our mayor, because I knew her at the time. She was in our Lions Club, so I kind of knew her a little bit. And I told her that I think this would be really useful, not just for people like me who are blind or, low vision, whatever, but it would be helpful to the whole community. Well, she talked to somebody, I don't know, in city planning, somebody in city government, I guess, and they said that it would have to be the Department of Transportation that would do this, because the intersections that I was suggesting, like I said earlier, they are technically a highway. It wasn't a city street. It was a highway, US Hwy. So this guy that she talked to in the city plan, I can't remember what department it was. He emailed me a contact number for somebody in the Indiana Department of Transportation, and I started emailing. And I told them what I would like to see done, where I'd like to see the signals installed, and I really the blindness thing, I really laid it on thick with them at the Department of Transportation. Hey, I'm blind. I can't get to my bank because I can't cross the street. Things like that. So we're talking starting. I guess the process with where I started with the mayor was maybe November of 2012. And for off and on, every few months, I would be emailing or getting an email from somebody from the Department of Transportation telling me, well, it's got to be, the proposal has to be approved for the funding, the state has to pay for it and all that. And then I was told that it got approved. Then I was told, well, they've got to find a vendor, somebody that's they're going to buy the things from. And, oh, my gosh, it was
Red tape.
So it took almost about 3 years to get these things installed. And Rich, the one that was just talking, he's one that has used them downtown, and he said they were working great. And I haven't. When I tried them, they hadn't been adjusted for the traffic noise. You could barely hear them. So of course I got back on the computer. Hey, even a normal hearing person cannot hear this thing talk to it. So. Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was because you're talking, a semi's going by you, and you're hearing, you may now cross the street.
Oh yeah.
It's ridiculous. So they said they would come and bump the volume up on all of them, and they did it. And I'm just anxious for warm weather to get here so I can go try it.
Well, the reason I brought it up, I just wanted to point out one thing real quick. The only reason we have those signals is because she hung with it and stayed with it and stayed. And I don't mean in a negative way. I don't mean in a protesting sort of way, but in a positive way.
Yeah.
Just never gave up. Never gave up.
I know where you're
Read.
I read that here. Rita, I have a question for you. This is Mary. When you were talking about sign language, I know sign language. I am not as fluent anymore as I used to be.
Okay.
But were you using ASL or the deaf-blind signing? Because there are sign languages.
Right.
Did you know that
well,
or not?
Did you learn ASL? Is that?
I learned ASL. Yes, I hate the deaf-blind sign language.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy.
Oh. Well.
But did you know that there were two different signings?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Our staff at the rehab center where I worked, we all had to take sign language, and of course, learning it in the class, it was just standard ASL. But then when I was working with my deaf-blind clients, there was, my very first one, he was totally blind, totally deaf, and that was my first experience in using it in his hand. But he had done it so long, it didn't take him very long to figure out what I was doing. So, and he's the one that gave me he was the one that gave me my name sign. It was the R, because I have curly hair. It was the R, and you kind of twirl down in front of your ear to look like a curl. Yeah, for Rita. So I would do the R, and he knew who I was.
So,
I know.
Mine is a T going down the side of your hair, because my hair used to be really, really long. And it's not as long now, but it used to be.
Mhm.
I find that very interesting. You do a lot of signing in your classes. I think that's good.
Mhm. It was easier for me to sign to somebody else than to have them put it in my hand and me figure it out. Though I'm not very good at that.
Rita?
Yeah.
My Jane is Bo Jane Heap. You know me from Good
I know that name.
Yeah. And I just had to come into this conference so I could say hello to you, because I'd never heard you talk before, and I wanted to hear your voice and connect a voice with a name, the way sighted people connect a picture with a name and figure out what they look. I wanted to hear a voice and connect a name with. Now I've heard you, and I know who you are. And I just think this is just terrific that we've had this opportunity. With my experience with deaf-blind people, I went to Perkins, and a lot of the people up there at the time that I was there knew the Tadoma method.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Tadoma.
And that was a method by which they would read lips with their fingers.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And there were only 5 people in the world who learned that method and were good at it, and still we just lost Bob Smithus, and he was expert at it.
Yeah. Yeah, you never hear about it anymore. I don't think they use it anymore. No, I remember learning about it when I went to get my certification in deaf-blindness. But, now that technology is so here now, you've got all that you can communicate with and all that. But, I was like, how? And didn't Helen Keller use that too?
Yes,
I think Helen Keller.
Yeah,
I think she did.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We're just doing the regular deaf-blind signing as well.
Oh, okay. Well,
I think
drives me nuts. Oh.
I'm trying to think who else Gail Sebanitis used it. I'm trying to remember who else I knew. Oh, Donna Lepore. Donna Lepore knew it too. She was very good at it, but she had a little bit of sight. But all these people I knew from Perkins, and I've never seen it used anywhere else. I knew a deaf-blind guy from New York. His name was Gus Gisser. And Gus didn't use that. He used a teletouch.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And we used to sit and write letters by the hour. Even if we were in person, I'd just type on the teletouch, and he'd talk back to me, and then I'd type some more, and he'd talk back, and I'd type some more.
And they don't make that anymore either. They don't make the teletouch anymore.
No, but they do make computers that the deaf and deaf-blind people can use. And they can type. They're really cool.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
So, what was I doing?
How long have you been? This is Mike. How long have you been hearing impaired?
Are you talking about me? Are you talking to me, Mike? Okay. I got my first hearing aid when I was 13, and that was just kind of a mild to moderate loss. And I think I was in my early 30s, maybe late 20s, early 30s, when my other ear caught up with my bad ear. So then I got my second hearing aid. So then I wore my 2 hearing aids until in 2002, just in the matter of about 10 minutes, I totally lost all the hearing in my right ear.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Total deafness. Yeah. Mhm.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of my hearing in 2010.
And Phoenix again?
Am I on? Nice. Huh?
Can you hear me?
What was the cause of your hearing?
Yeah, I'm going to discuss.
Too many earaches when I was a kid.
You don't hear me?
Too many ear infections.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, Ed.
Okay. My question or my comment is that back in the early 70s, I guess it was, we had as our featured speaker Dr. Robert Smithis. And somehow or other, I happened to be in the wrong place at the right time or something, and they took a picture of me and him in the Trenton Times, and they showed it was very hard for me to talk to him because at that time I didn't have any appreciable hearing loss that bothered me at all. So then I decided, from after having read about it, that I would try the Tadoma method with him. And as soon as I, gave him, put his fingers up, hands on my throat and began to talk, he got so animated. That's when they took the picture. I mentioned, deaf-blind people that I knew he would know. They were sort of prominent in their field, as was he. And I just wondered if you know much about Tadoma. It's very hard to learn, I understand, and only a few people know it. But, I mean, it's really amazing how quickly he was able to. He was on Barbara Walters, and, of course, he probably did the same thing. I don't know. I have a video of that.
He was expert at that. Man could do Tadoma like nobody I've ever known. He was unbelievable. He was unbelievable. Can you hear me?
If you can see what? If you can
I wanted to say that I'm sorry. Can you hear me, Joni?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I think it's phenomenal. I remember hearing about Good Cheer also about 60 years ago. And one of my friends helped Rod McDonald. I think that she did brailing for him or something. But I think it's phenomenal that Good Cheer is still around. I think that it's wonderful. Because look at the Ziegler is gone, and magazines that deaf-blind people, a lot of Braille stuff is gone. And I guess with the technology, maybe they don't need it, but I think it's great. There's still a Braille magazine around for them.
What is great, to kind of follow up on that is, a lot of countries, they do not produce their own Braille materials. And these people can only get things from the United States in Braille. Yep. So the Good Cheer is one option for them out of what seems to be very few. We send this. We send it to Central Africa, Egypt, Ireland, Australia.
That's phenomenal.
It's awesome. I get letters pretty regularly from a guy in Africa. He brailles it to me, and it's like I am actually getting mail from Africa.
Cool. Yeah.
Braille mail.
Yeah.
Braille mail. Snail Braille mail.
Yeah.
Yes, Braille mail. I love it.
Yeah. So, but I enjoy doing this. I've never had, real training on being an editor. It's just trial and error. But I have a good team. Our co-editors. We all work well together, and that makes it happen when you've got a good team. So, yeah. The next issue should be out in probably 3 or 4 weeks.
How often does it come out, Rita?
Oh, it's a quarterly magazine. Yeah, and we've got 4 of us that are contributors. We have a chef's corner where we get cooking tips and recipes, and then we have and we have Touch Points, which is Renee Walker is deafblind, and she has her own special school in Georgia. I think her students are deafblind, but she writes about personal experiences as a person with deaf-blindness. So, she has a column, and then I do my little silly thing. And then BJ Lejeune is our treasurer, and she has worked with older deafblind in Mississippi. She works at Mississippi State University. So she's our only sighted co-editor. The rest of us are deafblind, at whatever level. So, yeah. But we've got, lots of news, jokes. People submit poems and stories, and I stick those in there. We have the post office column for people to write letters to the magazine. So, yeah, it's grown a lot since the 30s. It was just like a pen pal newsletter back then, and now it's a real magazine. So.
As a follow-up, Rita, how do you accept money for your books and so forth? Do you do PayPal, or can you do debit and credit?
No, I do just check, cash. Yeah, because I don't have a website or anything. I sell them on my own. Now, the first book is available online, like Barnes & Nobles, places like that. But I think it's just the large print and maybe an e-book. The large print online is going to cost more than my $10. And the e-book is probably about $4 online. So I'm sorry. But, those, if you ordered that book online in one of those 2 formats, you could PayPal or charge it or whatever. But otherwise, you get the cheaper one from me, and I just take checks. So.
And then I have another question. I'm a special education teacher in our local schools here, and we're using more and more technology to communicate with the deaf in class. Do you have in your repertoire all the technology or new technology that's coming along that could be like a resource to teachers?
Well, I just kind of remember when I was doing my deafblind training, which I did that at Northern Illinois University. They showed us different kinds of communication devices, and one was the deafblind communicator, and it's like one side has a print keyboard, like a QWERTY keyboard, and a little window that shows print, and then the other side had a Braille display.
Yep.
Okay, that was kind of a neat thing that they showed us. But there's also oh my goodness, I'm blank on the Humanware. Humanware has a communicator, and it has the print and braille, so a sighted person could communicate. Now if you're talking about, go ahead.
I've got one on my computer. I've got a braille display, and I can hook it up. I hook that up with my computer, and anything I'm writing, I can read it right away.
Oh, that's great.
This is Rich again, real quick. Doesn't while the gentleman asked about the technology question, isn't there a tech section in Good Cheer where people contribute articles about a lot of those new devices and things that come out?
Yeah, there's a technology section, and it's news articles mostly about what's out there.
The only reason I brought that up was I'm kind of a tech guy, and I read it all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Could I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
My name is Steve. I was always low vision. I went to Perkins, and I guess looking back, they really didn't prepare me for like issues I would have with my sight later. And when I was 50, I had a lot of issues that my prognosis is questionable, and I had to learn the non-visual stuff. And I think personally they should teach that when you're younger, because it's really tough at my age. And I wonder if you had like any tips to make it easier. I mean, practice, of course, but like just getting that mindset. Like I said, if I was younger, I would have picked up on that. Because I wanted to learn Braille at Perkins. They said, "Oh, you don't have to learn Braille. You'll probably never lose your sight." And I learned Braille at 50, grade 1, and it's like it's tough with the mobility, and I can't rely on my sight anymore. And I think they should focus. I don't know if they do now, maybe more than they used to when I was younger. But have you had any experience with that kind of thing?
Well, as a matter of fact, I think it was last school year, in one of our local public school classes, there was a little boy who his vision has gotten to the point where he can't see print well anymore, and his classroom teacher was teaching him Braille in the classroom. You don't see that much in the public school. They have the resource teachers, or I think they mostly call them resource teachers, or a vision teacher that works with the public schools. They travel around to the different public schools and work with the visually impaired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I worked a lot with some of the kids from the Mississippi Schools for the Blind through my years in the center there, and I remember hearing stories about, the low vision kids, they just use bold line paper and that kind of thing, and then the blind, they learn the Braille. So I think it's kind of been up to the school as to what they've taught. But I agree. If you have an eye condition that's going to get worse, teach the kid early, because I didn't learn until I was an adult. I didn't learn Braille until I was in college to learn how to be a rehab teacher.
Wow.
That kind of thing.
Yep. I think they should be more prepared, though, because nobody knows the future. And if you have low vision, they can't guarantee. But I mean, I look back and it's like, oh, you're not going to have to worry about that. You don't need to learn Braille.
Yeah.
I wish I had. And all that other non-visual stuff, it's like so hard to do when you're older, because you have to,
Well, and I've always heard, and probably you guys all have too, that it's easier to learn when you're young.
Sure.
They say you can't teach old dogs new tricks. Well, you can learn when you're older. It's just harder.
Yeah, tell me about
it. Always had an issue. I always had an issue.
National Braille Press and UEB. I assume that eventually, maybe in the very near future, you're going to have to publish in UBC. Does that mean that the magazine will be shorter? I know it'll be more expensive if you retain all the same articles.
Well, starting this year, National World Press is going to start putting our good cheer in the EUB.
UEB?
UEB? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. They're going to start using that. Yeah. I don't think that there's going to be that big of a change as far as length. I really don't think it's going to be that big.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that things will be. It's like grade 1.5 was.
1.5. That's
the new UEB.
Yeah.
If anybody remembers grade 1.5.
No, they didn't.
I know Ed does.
Wow. Time for several more questions if anyone has one.
I have a couple of brief questions.
Go ahead, Don.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hi. This is Don from Massachusetts. Are you currently a rehab teacher at this time?
No, I've been retired since 2008.
Oh, okay. Maybe you said that earlier. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Did you teach in a school environment, or was it a state agency?
Yeah, I worked for the state of Mississippi through the Department of Rehab Services, and I was center-based, so I didn't, some rehab teachers go to their clients' homes and stuff.
Right.
Since I was visually impaired, I didn't want to have to pay a driver, so I got lucky and found a job there at the center. And I was in that same job for about 20 and a half years. So,
wow.
Which is rare from what I hear. Rehab teachers don't stay in one job that long. So.
Did you find more multiple
the equivalent of that here. It's called the commission. But
okay.
It's it's the same thing.
Probably.
Right. Did you get into voc rehab at all?
Yeah, I worked under voc rehab. We worked closely with voc rehab counselors for the blind. Yeah, we worked real close with them.
Rita, I have a question. This is Mike again in Aventura. I was wondering, and I asked this for a reason, do you think things today have gotten better for the blind in all aspects? I had a fight with my place where I live where they wanted to not let me stay there because of the fact they didn't like me going out. They claimed they were responsible for me. They claimed they were liable for me. They were not going to renew my lease. I called the Lighthouse for the blind down here. They wouldn't do anything. I called the Division of Blind Services. My counselor gave me a lecture. Do what they want, and all this stuff. I called an attorney, and he said that to them that if they don't change the decision, it will be in the courtroom, and I won.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think conditions have gotten better for the blind, or do you think a lot more can be done?
Well, as far as adapted devices and technology and all that, everything's wonderful. I mean, it's getting better all the time. But to me, society, quote, the sighted people,
going backwards.
they don't understand enough about vision loss, not necessarily a specific kind of eye problem, but in general, a blind person, period. They don't understand that we are not helpless.
Right.
And, I live in my own home. Now, there's things I can't do, but I take care of my own home. I fix my own meals. I have somebody help me go shop, that kind of thing. But, you know, like Rich that's on the call, he and his wife and I, we catch the bus together and we go out to eat. You know, we do fun things together where we don't have to rely on anybody sighted except for the bus driver. You know, but there are a lot of uneducated people out there that still think, you know, oh, here, let me help you across the street.
I'm 18 now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can I throw a question out to the whole group? I don't necessarily want to answer, but if somebody feels like answering, go for it. When people see us and they think we don't know what we're doing, but yet we do. We live on our own. We live and work in our own communities. We do everything in our own communities. What do we do with these people?
Educate them.
Educate them.
Educate.
Well, you know,
never stop.
You know what?
Keep up the fight. That's
stay
all.
in a hurry. And there are times that we have to get somewhere too. What do you do?
Yeah. Hang
Well,
in there.
I
think to educate them. But
go ahead, Rita. Your turn.
I think all of us that are on this call, even, all of us who are blind, visually impaired, have any kind of disability, we are going to have to be educators. Okay? Educate the general public, because I mean, I used to, when I was working, I used to conferences and stuff, and it was amazing to me that the airline personnel did not know how to do sighted guide. I had one airline person. She had both of my hands in her two hands and was walking backwards down the ramp. I mean, So, you know, that was my chance to be an educator. And, you know, I told her, you don't need to do it that way. I can just take your elbow and walk with you, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we have to be educators.
I've had that same experience.
The worst are the medical people, the nurses and doctors.
Oh, man.
That blows my mind, though. Yeah.
It's just my opinion, Rita, but I seem to think that the Rehabilitation Act of 73 with Section 503 and gave us much more freedom and understanding in the public. A lot of people love ADA, but ADA is so misunderstood, and in my opinion, from what I've observed personally, I see our freedoms and our understanding being turned backwards. We're going in the wrong direction, in my opinion. Do you see this thing?
We don't have ADA up here.
Every state has it.
No, she's in Canada.
I'm in bloody Canada.
Oh, you're in
She's in Canada, Rita.
Upside down, backwards. Country I've never been.
But do you see the ADA setting us backwards? I really see it.
Well, can you give an example of what you mean?
Just in people's attitudes towards us, at least Section 503, when it came to accessibility, schools were much more willing to make facilities available, got resource teachers, when ADA came in, a lot of that went down the tubes, and now you've got to fight for every single dollar to educate a child. It's just going backwards.
Yeah, and that kind of includes the IDEA Act, you know, the IDEA Act.
And some states are even getting rid of the IWRP and the IEP.
Really?
Oh,
really?
What are they?
Matter of fact, Massachusetts is one of the states that are getting rid of it.
Why are they getting rid of it?
Where did you see that? Why
I mean, what would they replace?
I thought that was the law, a federal law.
Yes, but the state is making determinations that are contrary to what they should be doing. They're now trying to umbrella everything and put everything under one lump group.
Yeah.
It's going to be in court again.
That ain't going to work.
They're going to. Someone's going to take them out on that. It might take a long time. But
our time is up, by the way, for this edition of podcast.
I need to give everybody. I need to give my address and stuff real quick, man.
Go right ahead. You've got 1 minute, Rita.
Do I have time? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Okay. If you are interested in the Good Cheer magazine, or one of the books, the Good Cheer is free. You can email me, and my email address is Hoosier Rita, and that's all lowercase, HOOSIERRITA @gmail.com. Or if you're going to, now the Good Cheer, you can email me and tell me what format you want, and I'll add you to our list. The books, you can snail mail me with a check or a bank check, whatever. And my address to mail that to is our local ACB chapter's mailbox, and it's you would send it to Rita, R-I-T-A, Kersh, K-E-R-S-H, and it's P.O. Box 2216, Bedford, B-E-D-F-O-R-D, Indiana, and the zip code is 47421. And if you want a book, just tell me which book and what format, large print, Braille, or CD. Does that all make sense?
Yep.
Yes, it does. And Rita, before I close, I want to thank you for giving us your time this evening and to share your thoughts and wisdom with all of us here on Branco Broadcast.
Well,
it was a real pleasure being with you.
Well, it's been an educational one for me.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This is Bob Branco, and thanks for listening to Branco Broadcast.
That's a cut. A take.
Excellent show, Bob.